Are you your kindness? Is the kindness an expression of the essence of you? When you act in a certain way, or you have a feeling in a certain way, is that the true, authentic you? Is that truly a core expression of you? Or is it just perhaps the way you are focused in that particular moment and acting or feeling in that particular moment? Who are you? Are you your kindness? Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We are studying in Shar Yichave Amuna, the gate, the pathway to divine unity, God's unity, his oneness, and that faith, that belief system, what that belief means. It's very profound and fundamental. It's physics of the universe, pure physics for that matter, of understanding the power of Creator within creation. We are now in chapter 8. Can you show us? Yeah. And we begin with understanding, or trying to understand, the human character qualities that are of God. Human character, meaning we have them too. We have wisdom. We have understanding, knowledge, kindness, judgment, refrain, discernment, compassion, endurance, triumph, acknowledgement, humility, connectivity, and sovereignty, the 10 the 10 powers of our soul. And we have them because God has it. And he imbued the human soul with those qualities. But let us understand it from the divine perspective. As Maimonides teaches us, an idea that we've learned before, that God and his knowledge are truly one. Complete simplistic whole oneness, not a compound. We and our knowledge is a compound. Why? Because we are not a sum total of our knowledge. It's not one with us. Proof is, now today you're going to learn something new. That means it's added. To me, it's added to you. That means it's a compound. It's not pure simplistic wholeness. I am the knower, my soul knows. My brain is the knowledge, the tool of knowledge, and the known is the information. 2 + 2 = 4. There was a time you didn't know that and became added to your knowledge, meaning it's a compound to you. It's not you. By God, though, it's not that way. He is the knower, the knowledge, and the known all at once, which is something that we cannot understand. It's beyond us. But we understand that it must be that way because otherwise there would be something added to God. There'd be something more of him. The fact that he knows right now that we're learning Tanya. Well, that would be something added to him. No. How does he know it? Not outside of himself, but of himself he knows. Now the question is, and this is a concept that we've learned previously, the Alter Rebbe then extends this to all of the other qualities that we give to the divine. I mean, that the Alter Rebbe teaches us about the divine. In other words, We speak about wisdom. We speak about desire. How do we speak about wisdom about God? How do we speak about God desiring? He is beyond any kind of adjective to describe him. And yet, the Torah speaks about that he wishes to do kindness. God wishes to do kindness. He desires that we do repent, that the wicked repent. He doesn't want to bring anything negative upon the wicked. That's a desire. How do we understand that? Well, just as the knowledge he knows himself, it's not something outside of him, because it's one with the essence of God. So likewise, his desire, his wisdom, his kindness is totally one with God. It doesn't add plurality. He's not a composition of things, but it is one with the essence of God himself. All of the attributes are that way. Perfect unity and oneness with God. And as Maimonides says it about God's awareness and his knowledge, that it's something we can't understand. Likewise, when it comes to all of the attributes that we refer to in God, it's beyond our understanding, how it's absolute perfect oneness. Because if we were to make a mistake, we would create God from our image, because since, we can be very self-directed, very, the ultimate narcissism is to create God in your image, right? What's our image? Well, our image is, when we look at ourselves, wisdom is the highest form. Chokhmah is the highest form of a quality of the soul. It's the highest form, right? It's the first thing in the created being is wisdom. As a matter of fact, when the Targum Yonasan, when it says on the word Bereshis, the very first word of the Torah, in the beginning, translates it with wisdom. In other words, God created the world with wisdom. So the first thing in the created being is wisdom. In all creatures, and of course in the human, even more so. And from that wisdom that we're created with, it evolves to Bina, understanding. Wisdom is the quintessential point of an idea, the seed, if you will, and from the seed it develops into a tree. It develops, and that's Bina, full understanding. And from there to Das, knowledge, awareness. And from intelligence, what happens from intelligence? So we have the three steps of Chabad, Chochmah, Bina, B'das. From the intelligence, where does that then flow into? Emotions, exactly. Into emotions such as love, that produces kindness, such as fear, that produces, holding back, refrain, mercy, compassion, and so on. As we see clearly that intelligence develops the emotions, because a child, who is lacking in wisdom, gets angry and unkind at trivial things. Why? Why is that? It's because they're lacking in understanding and awareness that this is trivial. So don't get upset because the little one bally was, taken away from you. You've got another 10 of them in your hand. But The child lacks the intelligence and therefore will get upset. Meaning, the point being over here is that our emotions are developed through our intelligence. So from here, it flows into here, right? Then further, the next step in the human condition is that the emotions then bring about what? No. What do they bring about? Thought. You think about the things that you have strong feelings. If you have no feelings about something, you will never think about that thing. But if you have strong feelings, the person might not even be in front of you. You have strong feelings towards them of love. They're not there. You're going to think about them. Right? So we have now we have the first degree is intelligence. The second degree that it evolves into is emotions. And then from emotions, it comes to thought. And from thought, right, which is letters in your mind of a language that you think in, is vivified by what's giving it its life. It's the emotion. It's giving it the life, right? And then from there, when you're thinking and you're thinking about something and now you want to express it to your friend, you want to share the love with them. So what will vivify the next degree of separation is your speech is going to be vivified by your thoughts, which is vivified by your emotions, which is vivified by your intelligence. And then finally, of course, is that we bring it into action. Right? You're really not going to do any kind of action if you don't think about something, right? And of course, the more intentional you are, the more the act will be intentional. The less you think it, the less intentional it'll be. But of course, there's got to be some form of thought that goes into the action. Not necessarily there has to be speech, right? But definitely thought and speech, both that vivify the action. Now, right? Now, how is it by us? So we have here 5 degrees of separation. Intelligence that gives life to the emotion, vivifies it. Emotions that vivify the thought that is vivified and gives life to the speech. And then finally, action. How do you compare action to speech? Not the value of action, but the capacity to do an act versus a capacity to speak. It's a much simpler thing to do as an action. A child can see a ball, a little child that might be only 6 months, and sees a little bally that's red, and it catches it the eye, and it wants to play with it or push it or on the what's it called, on the those what are they called, on top of the crib that you have that play music and go around. I forgot what it's called. The child wants to grab something. That's an action. That the motor skill in that is very simple compared to the motor skill that's involved in speech. So there's a great leap between the two. Speech is a greater motor skill, more refined motor skill. Then the next degree of separation is thought. Thought is even greater. Why? Because thought is what gives life to the speech. What allows speech to to work, to express properly, because you thought it out. It wasn't a mumble jumble. So the thought is even more refined. That's why it's harder to pay attention in your thoughts, the more refined skill. And all of that is in language, right? Your thought, your speech, language. But what's the source of your thought? Is emotion. Emotion means here no language, no thought before the thought. Do you have a feelings to somebody that you love? The feeling is there even though you don't think about them. When you think about them, then it emerges in your thought, right? But the feeling is still there. Otherwise, it wouldn't emerge. It wouldn't emerge a feeling of thought, of love in your thoughts, and that you would express it with a loving way. If it wasn't already there, how is it there? Beyond the language. So the beyond the language is the source of the language of the thought. Another degree of separation that is incomparable one to the other. And then finally, intelligence. Intelligence is the greatest thing about the human being, right? And that intelligence is much greater than the emotion. Again, not the value of it. We're not talking about value, because the value of action is, is ultimately, you got to do the mitzvah, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about the power of the soul. What is greater power? Well, intelligence of the soul, of course, the greatest power. The most refined, the most abstract, perhaps, if you will, the most expressive of the soul, right? Action is the least expressive of the soul, right? You go with your hand and you want to take something. How much is that expressing your soul? But when you have an understanding of something in your mind, not that you think it, that you understand something, you have an intelligence. That's a much more greater expression of the soul. So we have 5 degrees of separation here. One so much greater than the other as we go up, if you will, the totem pole, right? And as we go down the chain of descent from level to level, beginning from wisdom, culminating with action, each level bears no comparison to the level that immediately precedes it. That's the way it is in the human condition. Guess what, folks? Don't make a mistake and think that that's the way God is. Of course, naturally we will, because in the end, we're kind of narcissists. We think everything is the way I am. Not the case of God. We go now to chapter 9. Chapter 9, in regards to God, the Holy One, blessed be He, His level of wisdom, God's wisdom, not our wisdom, His wisdom, which is the source of all of creation. Divine wisdom is the beginning of thought, and the genesis is to Him. To Him, it's like the final stage of action. Into relationship to God. Ein Sof, Holy One, blessed be He. Right? Wisdom is like the 5th degree of separation, action, one and the same. Wisdom in the human soul compared to action is 5 degrees of separation. They're infinitely removed. They're so removed from each other, right? But not by God. That's why it says, you have made them all with wisdom. When you made them, should have intellected them with wisdom. You made them, because wisdom for God is like action, made. In other words, wisdom and action before God are the same thing. Not for us. but by God, they are. By us, the degree of life force that's found in action is incomparable to the life force that's found in speech, and speech incomparable to thought, thought incomparable to emotion, emotion incomparable to our intelligence. But in relationship to God, wisdom is nothing. Divine wisdom, not our wisdom, his wisdom compared to him. Because wisdom is already a something, and God is no thing beyond. He's elevated, exalted, myriads of levels of degrees of elevation, more than the 5 degrees of the distinction that there is between intelligence and action in the human dimension. God is infinitely removed. Infinitely removed. Now, of course, then when you have a question, why do we compare distance of wisdom from God to the distance of action from wisdom when he's infinitely removed from it? That will be in tomorrow's class. We'll deal with that, and we'll deal further understanding of this concept. And what the important idea over here is we have to be careful not to create God in our image, and appreciate that even though we have been endowed by God with 10 powers of the soul, as he has 10 divine attributes, that we shouldn't see them in the same way. Ours is we're a composite of things, and God is a simplistic whole oneness. So simplistic whole oneness, what will that mean? Right. When you're a composite, a compound, so there's higher and there's lower, right? Makes sense. But when you're simplistic whole oneness, is there a higher and lower? It's like a circle. Is there a higher or lower? No. Everything on the circle is the same circumference. So God, there is not a higher or lower element before him. It's all the same. Right? Not by us. So we have to be careful with that. And from there, we can have a truer understanding of the divine unity and the oneness of God. But more to come on that. Yeah, I saw that there were some questions.
Shabbos and Monday.
And Sunday, yes. Yes. As we do every Sunday. Yeah. How can the first spark of thought without Bina and Das be called wisdom? Wisdom in Hebrew is chachma. Chachma comes to the word koachma, the power of what? It's like that flash. You know, I'm sure we've all experienced this, that when we've had something, a question in something, you had an issue, and all of a sudden, a flash, eureka, I got it. Yeah, I got it. That flash, that light goes off in, right? That flash, that light is like a seed. Everything's there, and the seed, the entire tree is there, but yet it hasn't been actualized. So in Chachma, the entire understanding is there, but it hasn't been developed. In Bina, it's developed. So before you can develop something, you have to have something what to develop, right? Before you can have the tree developed, you have to have the seed that it will be developed from. Before you can develop an idea, you have to have the seed of the idea that has the entire idea there. You just have to now further develop, unfold it from that seed. So that's the idea of Chachma versus Bina. Thank you, Amy. But I saw another question. Before I forget, today's class is in honor of, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Liba, if you can put it up. Liba and Davida's brother. It's your site today. Ben Yeshayahu, I know. And I forgot his, it's on my phone and I don't have access to it right now. If you can put it up. So in the merit of his neshama, his soul that should go from strength to strength. Is not Torah God's wisdom that we act on before understanding, so it is not far away? Okay, very good, Andrew. Question. So here we're talking about there's God's wisdom as part of creation, and there's God's wisdom that's beyond creation. And that wisdom is the Torah. So we're not speaking here specifically. They're interconnected because the inner dimension is always connected to the outer dimension. But here we're speaking about the outer dimension of divine wisdom. Right? The inner dimension, God gives to us the Torah that we can know Him. Absolutely. But here we're talking not about knowing Him through Torah. Right? We're talking about knowing Him through creation itself. That's the distinction over here. So I hope that clarifies, Andrew. So absolutely, He's given us the Torah so we can know Him, know what He wants us to do, and know Him. But here we're speaking about the wisdom that's in everything in creation, right? If you remember, I had a leaf the other day, a maple leaf. I guess it. Anyways, if you look at a leaf, you could see divine wisdom in it. We're talking about, right? Diane has a question. Diane, could you ask your question again? Put it up because I can't see it. I don't see it. Missed it. Okay. Online we have a question, I think. Okay. Carlos has a question. Are feelings and emotions before thoughts? Yes. Or thought can go first and then emotions. It can be dual. I think that's something you can develop emotions, feel rage, sadness, and develop thoughts. Very good. Okay. Excellent question. Ah, okay. So merit of Bitzalel ben Yeshayahu. Neshama go from strength to strength. So normally speaking, thoughts are infused with the vitality of emotion. However, you could choose a thought that may not be your feeling, right? That's freedom of choice. And that's not the discussion here. That's not the discussion here. But Carlos, you're very true. We could choose a thought that is diametrically opposite of what I'm feeling. I'm feeling let down, and I choose to see that person in a positive light. So my feelings are a negative feeling, but I choose otherwise. I choose to be to think otherwise. So yes, that's the freedom of choice that we have. and it could develop the emotions. Um, and could develop and change it'll change it by a different way. It won't change it directly. Your thought will not change your emotion. Your thought changes your perspective, your mind. And now that you change your mind, you can then inspire or infuse your heart with a different feeling because you chose to think differently than what you naturally would feel. That's absolutely correct. But that again, that's not, we're using this all over here for a metaphor to understand the power of creator within creation, right? That is the focus over here. So we're understanding the way it is within us to know that within God it's different. There's 5 degrees of separation. By God, there's not. It's a complete, whole, perfect unity because we want to understand the unity of God. That's the point over here. And he's a perfect whole oneness in his unity. What is unified now? What do we learn about today? That the 10 attributes of God are a perfect whole oneness with him. Okay, Diane's question, should you expect kindness in return for the kindness to others or expect nothing back? Barachana from Pennsylvania. Well, should you expect? No. Would it be nice? Absolutely. Don't expect it. Can only expect from ourselves, not from anybody else, not even our spouse. Can hope. Be nice. I don't know if hope is the right word. Right. But it would be nice, obviously. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? All right, folks. A reminder tonight, 6:30. You don't want to miss the Torah portion of the week, Chukas. Fascinating stuff of what it means to deal with hardships in life and how to come up on top. All right. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kedoshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing